Good morning and thank you so much for joining us right here on the Mid-Morning Pack. Of course, when it is on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., you know it is time for the Mid-Morning Pack, where we unpack weighty matters happening in the society, in our 47 counties and also across the country. And of course, today we have prepared for you a very robust discussion where we want reason to prevail, even as we dig deeper into the issue of the protests that have been called by the opposition that are supposed to begin today up to Friday. And today we want to look into the effect and what really needs to be done to ensure that peace, harmony, and also prosperity continues in this particular country. A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for tuning in right here on your favorite channel, MBCI TV. My name is Ngicho Mola. On the other side is my co-host, Paul Kagi. Good morning and good to see you today.
Good morning. How are you, Mangicho? How is your Wednesday?
My Wednesday is good. And of course, we've woken up to sunny Wednesday.
Yes.
Despite the fact that there have been fears across the country in relation to what we've been expecting or what we've been anticipating regarding to the Mandamano or the protest.
Yes, and
but we're
thank
thanking God so far, so good.
Thank God we are here, as usual, for the Mid-Morning Pack, dear viewer, and we are welcoming you once again for the program today, as we are going to put more weight on various matters, to give you more enlightened on various matters regarding to this nation, on social, economic, and political, and other platforms. Once again, my name is Paul Kagi. Don't go too far.
Exactly, and of course, as we always do in this particular program, we have a guest that will help us to get into the nitty-gritties of our conversation, and we are privileged today to have Dr. Ndungu Kongo, who is a political analyst and also a lecturer of political history. He will be here in a short while to help us discuss on this particular topic, our topic being calls for sobriety and cohesion, calls for sobriety and cohesion. Of course, what we've been seeing is push for, or actually what we've been seeing, especially from our leaders and some of our leaders, is aspects of incitement and just maybe people being given or people actually being incited to be divided and actually to be not to be in harmony. But today we want to stress and actually to emphasize the need and the importance of us as a country to be united, to have harmony, to continue coexisting just the way we have been doing. And of course, this is a very interesting topic, and even where you are, we are still emphasizing and we are still encouraging you, we are still appealing to you to make sure that you make peace and also live in harmony. So Dr. Ndungu Kongo will be here in a short while to help us get into the meat and actually of this particular discussion. And we also want you to contribute. We also want you to give us your perspectives in this particular discussion today. And the question we are asking you is, what is your appeal regarding to peace and harmony, or peace and cohesion in the country? What is your appeal? What is that one appeal that you want to make? Maybe to your fellow countrymen, maybe to the leaders, maybe to the stakeholders, to politicians. What is that one appeal that you have this morning, even as we talk about matters, cohesion and sobriety? And you can begin to make those appeals. You can share them on our social media platform. We have Facebook right on, and YouTube. On Facebook, you can catch us live on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV. And then, of course, on YouTube, that is MBCI TV Official. You can also interact with us using our shortcut platform, that is 23814. Drop a comment or two, drop an appeal or two regarding to this particular matter, even as we come together and push for the need and for the importance of us as a country maintaining peace, maintaining harmony, and maintaining cohesion. Of course, as we continue with the discussion, we'll be able to look and sample some of your comments regarding to this particular discussion. But before we reach there, Kagi, we can look at other aspects that have also been making headlines across this 1 week.
Correct, Mangicho. And as usual, before we continue with our guest this morning, we have some issues that you want to bring on board to you to be able to maybe understand more as we continue with the Mid-Morning Pack this morning. And the first story that you shall be looking at is the Finance Bill 2023, which was officially stopped by the courts, and the case is ongoing. And by yesterday, the Chief Justice, Martha Koome, yesterday appointed 3 judges who are going to look at this case which was filed by Senator Okiya Omtata, to be able to challenge the implementation of the Finance Act 2023. And one of the things that he is saying is that if this rule is implemented, Kenyans might be subjected to unconstitutional law regarding to the issue of tax and so forth. Okay. And therefore, we are waiting for the case to start officially, and maybe it is not going to take long to know whether the Finance Bill 2023 is going to be implemented or not. And therefore, we have several petitions which have been filed at the courts, and they are going to be consolidated, but the main person behind these petitions is Mr. Omtata himself. Again, we are aware that Omtata has also challenged the EPRA, which is responsible for the maybe adjusting the fuel prices, that he has filed a petition in court wanting the managing director of EPRA to be punished for adjusting fuel prices against the court order. And he is saying that these fuel prices were part of the Finance Bill 2023. And therefore, he also wanted the court to be able to work on him for ignoring court order. And also, there was another petition which was brought that was involving the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of Senate regarding on the same, because there was a problem in the implementation of this act, whereby the Senate was questioning the legality of that implementation, that they were ignored by the National Assembly. But I think they have handled this matter behind the scene, but though this matter is still in court. So we are waiting to see how this matter is going to go forth, as Kenyans are holding their breath if the courts are going to maybe bring relief to them regarding the implementation of this act of Finance Bill 2023.
Absolutely. I think that is a story that, of course, most Kenyans will actually be interested in following.
Yes.
Remembering that this is also an item that had really caused and elicited mixed reactions across many Kenyans. And, of course, the majority of Kenyans feeling that this particular act that now has actually become law would actually make them to really suffer, especially maybe economically. Okay? Most of the taxpayers believe that this is a finance law that will actually make their lives to be very, very difficult in terms of actually fending for their living. And of course, we are looking forward now to find out what maybe are some of the issues that I believe it is the three-judge bench.
Yes.
So one of the judges is Judge David Mayanja, if I'm not very wrong.
Mayanja.
So we are actually looking forward to see maybe what are some of the issues that they are going to bring into perspective, what are some of the key issues that maybe they are going to look, even as they make this very, very pertinent ruling, because remember also this is the budget that I believe the government is actually expecting maybe to undertake in terms of this particular year 2023-2024. So a very, very interesting ruling to watch.
Yes, it's a matter that is drawing a lot of attention across the country, because away from being in court, we are also aware that this matter has really drawn the attention of the opposition, who are calling on demonstrations to be able to maybe to block the implementation of this bill.
Yes.
You remember, Ngicho, I think 2 or 3 weeks, we hosted the Secretary General of the MCA Association.
Yeah, I remember. Lawrence Karanja, who
yes.
is also the MCA for Naivasha East. Yes.
Yesterday, he announced that they have called off the strike, which has been there for 2 months, because of the differences regarding their parks.
Yeah.
And when he was here, he clarified that they are not pushing for the adjustment of their payments, but they want to implementation of the original parks that were given by the SRC. And therefore, they called off the strike yesterday for maybe 2 months to be able to give the Senate time to be able to look at this matter. And they are saying that they are going to go back to what they call the plenaries, and also to the committees, which are very key in the running affairs of our counties. And if they could have continued like this, Mangicho, I think many activities in our counties would have been shut down.
Yes.
And rely on the plenaries for the continuation of the operations of our counties.
Exactly.
For example, we are expecting them to be able to discuss the budget, present the budget, you know. But if they are away in the assembly, that means they're not going to get money to be able to fund the activities. And therefore, the strike is off, and they are saying they are going to hold as they wait for the Senate to be able to work on it, hoping they are going to agree. You know, we have the SRC and we have the Senate,
Right.
And then we have the public also. And those are three groups which are having the push and pull regarding to these salaries of the members of the county assembly.
Yes, and I believe, Kagri, that is a move that most Kenyans would actually support.
Yes.
Because we know the role of MCAs in strengthening and also enhancing devolution in the country. They are part and parcel of actually making devolution work. And therefore, when they are not functioning, of course, it means that part of a very, very greater percentage of devolution is also not taking place. So I think I would look at it as a wise decision. Of course, when you talk to him, and of course, we've even had other stakeholders, they have genuine concerns, but I think it was the right move. Now, what needs to be done is to give now the other bodies, maybe the SRC, and of course, as you've mentioned, the Senate, to get into those issues. Yeah, I saw there was that particular day, I even saw the MCA, the secretary who we had a discussion with him. He had gone to the Senate where he also presented those grievances of the MCAs. So we want to believe that they are going to reach some consensus so that we also see, of course, things moving as they are supposed to do, or as they are supposed to be done in our county assemblies.
Yeah, away from the counties, we move to the constituencies, whereby there is a report of the NGCDF board terminating stalled projects contracts. And this is because, which is not good news on one side, and the other one is good news, whereby there has been a lot of stalled projects in our constituencies. And now this board has sat down, they have compiled their report, and they found that many projects are unfinished. In fact, they were saying most of the projects which are affected are the schools, and the young people are the most affected. You know, there was that policy whereby we should give the youth time to get contracts, to be able to get some money or something of the sort. So I think many of them were given money under the CDF. And it is being said, hardly many of them have done this project beyond 3%. You see? And therefore, they felt these young people are incapacitated to be able to handle this matter, and they feel they need to cancel the contract at this point, and then they are going to retender those contracts of this project.
Okay.
But the question remains, what is going to happen if these guys who are given money to do projects in our constituencies, where are they going to take this money? And what is going to happen for these resources? For example, you were given 10 million to construct a certain project, and maybe it was above half of that money. They are not talking about if your contract is going to be cancelled, you are going to make this amount of refund. It's like it's a gone case. I think it's not a good culture, Mangicho.
Yes.
We need to make them to be responsible for their negligence, because if we are not going to do this, we are going to lose a lot of money.
Exactly, I totally agree with you. That is something that really needs to be put into consideration. And of course, one of the challenges that of course we've been having in this particular country, especially in matters governance, is wastage and also things to do with corruption and graft. Okay, and of course we've lost quite a lot of money in ways that even it's very, very hard to explain. So I think there needs to be some actions and some measures to be taken to ensure that we don't suffer the same this time around regarding to that particular matter.
And I feel that the Anti-Corruption Commission need to follow up this matter to ensure that maybe if you were given some money and you played around with that money, you have to be held accountable to avoid the repeat of the same.
Exactly.
If you know there's a culture whereby if you are unable to finalize the project, it can be cancelled, there's going to be a retendering, and they can be given to someone else, no one is going to follow you. It is going to create an avenue of a bad culture in terms of maybe misusing our resources.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there is another matter that is also not so pleasing regarding to the school tablets in our primary schools. You're aware, former President Uhuru Kenyatta had a dream to improve on the technologies of our young people. Class 1, you remember, whereby they were given some tablets, but there was a report that was given by the Ministry of Education. Out of the 1 million plus tablets that were issued to our children, 200,000 plus are missing. Either they got lost, or they broke down, or maybe nobody knows where they are. You know, that is, I think, is a quarter of that. And there must be done something to make sure that we are not losing something that we have purchased.
These are the tablets that were promised to the by then was the Jubilee government. That is back in 2013.
Yes.
Yes. I remember someone was making fun that the child who would have benefited from that particular program back in 2013, right now, I don't know, are they supposed to be in secondary?
Yeah, they're in Form 3.
Maybe to us, yeah, quite unfortunate.
Yes, and you know, I think some years back, the government bought a lot of books for the free primary education. Now, my question is, if we have lost such kind of facilities in our primary institutions or basic education, who is following up with the books that were bought to be able to implement the free primary education?
Exactly.
This matter need to be seriously brought into account to ensure that we are not losing a lot, especially in our education, because I don't think it is fair, Mangicho, that every time we are buying materials for our academic and no one is being held responsible.
Sure.
Yeah, especially our head teachers.
Exactly.
They need to take care of these facilities for the sake of our economy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think so much for what we've discussed or analyzed briefly in terms of what has been making headlines. And I think at this particular point, we want now to rope in our guest for this particular discussion. Remember, we are looking at the topic on sobriety, or calls for sobriety and cohesion. Calls for sobriety and cohesion. And on the set, we have Dr. Ndungu Kongo. He's a lecturer and also a political analyst. Karibu sana Daktari. Good to have you today in this particular show.
Thank you very much, Mangicho, for having me on this platform to come and discuss this pertinent issue on call for sobriety and cohesion.
Exactly.
And such a time as this, there should be some voice of reason, there should be some sanity, there should be some tranquility, because this country is bigger than an individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This country is bigger than an individual, and we are actually pleased for the very first time to host you.
Yeah.
And we are looking forward to a very fruitful conversation that will also benefit our audience.
Thank you.
And maybe just before we take a break, maybe just to have your very first and maybe brief comment, because Daktari, this is not the first time that as a country we are finding ourselves in this particular situation. Okay, we have 2007, we have 2013, we have 2017, and maybe for those who are advanced in age, they can also recall 1997, 1992.
Very true.
Is it that we are not very good in learning our lessons as a country?
I must appreciate that we have underlying issues, both historical and contemporary. And Kenyans, we seem to be poor students of history. As you've mentioned, that we have had this issue from 1992, 1997. We have had this issue 2008, and now 2017, 2018. Now we are in 2023. We still have an issue. We seem to have learned from political bad manners, and that's why we are not progressing. We seem to have leaders that do not have the interest of this country beforehand. We seem to have leaders that are not humane. We seem to have leaders that ought to have gone to leadership class, because leadership should be characterized by humane, should be empathetic. You should put the issues of the country before your personal interest. But what is characterized in our country, we have underlying issues of negative ethnicity, we have underlying issues of corruption, and Wanjiko seems to have lost trust with the executive, because the executive is not giving hope. We have parliament whom we have delegated power. We have what is called social contract. We have elected our leaders who should represent us in parliament. But these leaders seems to be controlled. There is some remote control from somewhere else. And therefore, as a country, Wanjiku has lost hope.
And of course, after or during electioneering period, Daktari, Kenyans are always advised and Kenyans are always enlightened on the importance and on the need to actually elect good leaders, leaders of integrity, visionary leaders, leaders who mind the welfare of the electorate. Is it that they really don't get into that position whereby they can be able to identify? Because maybe, as most Kenyans would believe, is that whenever we find ourselves in a situation like this, those who are to be blamed are the politicians.
Now, allow me to mention, Mangicho, that our leaders are a reflection of the society. And I must appreciate the fact that when we have people that put their interests before the interest of the country, and as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that we have a social contract. A social contract is an agreement between the leaders and the citizenry. But you see, there is what is called ethnic mobilization. And somebody said, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere once mentioned that leaders that use religion and use ethnic mobilization and leaders bankrupt of ideas and ideologies. So part of the blame is Wanjiku, because it's Wanjiku that delegates power to the elected leaders. And again, the elected leaders are not able to actually to exercise that delegated power to advocate for Wanjiku, to advocate for the poor. We seem not to be listening to the plight of the poor in the society. And therefore, that's why you see people going to protest, people demonstrating, people picketing. As much as it's a right in the Constitution anchored on Article 37 of our Constitution, we should have some responsibility. There's some provision in the Penal Code on how those people that cause injustice, those people that cause death and destruction of property, there are provisions on some of the steps that the National Police Service ought to take. So therefore, as much as we have been actually encouraged as Wanjiku to vote the right leaders, there is an issue of ethnic mobilization. Our politics is not anchored on ideology. Our politics is anchored on ethnic mobilization and emotions. Whoever comes with a slogan that seems to be appetizing to Wanjiku, he carries the day. And that is the unfortunate bit of our history of elections in Kenya.
Wow, absolutely. And maybe before I bring my colleague Kagi on this particular discussion, because again, what has also been of major concern to most Kenyans is that even in a scenario like this, Daktari, when of course maybe Kenyans are made to think that maybe what they are fighting for or what maybe they are demonstrating for, what they are protesting for is for their own good, for their own welfare. But to most people think that it is the other way around, that we are robbed into some of this fiasco, not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of these politicians.
I agree with you, Mangicho, for that statement that you just made. Allow me to appreciate by mentioning that our leaders are the root cause of the problems we are undergoing today. We seem to have issues to do with governance. We seem to have not appreciated the call for patriotism. I would want to mention that patriotism is not about singing the national anthem. Patriotism is all about setting back, reflecting, and asking ourselves pertinent questions. Is it the country? Is it institutions? Or is it our personal interest? But our leaders and the people in government, they've been given responsibility by God to take care of the plight of poor in society. But that is the issue. That is, we seem to, for example, as I would want to mention that the leader of opposition who has good repute, a renowned politician who has some experience, seems to be calling people to demonstrate. This is not the first time we are having demonstration. This is not the first time we are having picketing. I would want to mention that it began with Martin Luther King, who was the leader of the civil rights movement in 1950 and 1960s in the United States of America. But he advocated mass action and protest that were anchored on the following characteristics. That one, if people are to picket, if people are to demonstrate, they should actually prove that they have a grievance. They have a petition and they are not out there to cause injustice. Another characteristic of mass action and protest is that they should actually demonstrate that they have exhausted all mechanisms and platforms, including petition and negotiation. And then they should demonstrate that they are out there to cause harmony. But you see the kind of demonstrations we are having, I wonder if we have exhausted all those provisions in our constitutions. Have we exhausted our independent institutions? But the unfortunate thing in our country, those independent institutions that are supposed to be independent, actually they are not independent. We see a lot of interferences with the legislature. We see a lot of interference. And for example, if you are to look at our current parliament, it seems to be a foot soldier of the executive. It seems to be, I would want to say, a puppet of the executive. And therefore, when you see the parliament is dominated, is actually controlled by the executive, then what Wanjiko will do, will resort to demonstration. And at such a time as this, there should be some tranquility. There should be some sanity. There should be some voice of reason, because this country is bigger than an individual.
Exactly.
Right, and Dr. thank you. And I was concerned about the issue of having good leaders in our country. There has been a push and pull, and sometimes there is what we call the blame game between the public and the leaders. When you come on one side, we try to blame Wanjiko for not electing good leaders. On the other hand, we blame our leaders that we have elected. Don't you feel that at some point there is hope that on this land we shall have a crop of good leaders who can be trusted over this nation, who are not interested with corruption, who are interested in bringing country together? Is there any hope that we shall one day get a crop of good leaders?
We have had such leaders before in history. Mention just a few. We have had people like Martin Shikuku, Kenneth Matiba. We have people like Mwai Kibaki, John Michuki. We have Jenga Karume, such leaders like Charles Rubia. We have had such leaders. But the problem is with the current leadership is you know, when I wonder what happens when power gets into our leaders' minds and hearts. They forget very fast that power is transient. We have had actually one of the transformative leaders was Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki was on merit. Actually, his leadership is Keynesian. He was about employment, about education, but the kind of leaders we are having today, it's anchored on rewarding loyalism. If you're loyal to me, and that is what has characterized Dr. William Ruto's government. It's about rewarding those people that have stood with him. And I want to say that it calls upon our leaders to be extraordinary, to go outside their interests and to sacrifice for this country. I want to say at this juncture that there is still hope. But there is a clarion call that we must go against the odd. We must stand on our principles and on ideas. What we are having in Kenya is leaders that are bankrupt of ideas and ideologies.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Ndungu Kongo is a lecturer of political history and also a political analyst, joining us and giving us a very, very great insights as far as our discussion today is concerned. You are looking at calls for sobriety and cohesion. And just to bring you up to speed, you are watching the Mid-Morning Pack. We want to take a short break at this particular juncture, but we are coming back with much more, even as we continue to stress the importance of maintaining peace and harmony now and even in future. Don't go far away. We are coming back with much more.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Kingdom Seekers Fellowship is celebrating 20 years of God's faithfulness, providence, mercy, and grace. Apostle John Kemani William and the Kingdom Seekers Fellowship family welcomes you to the 24-hour worship experience in thanksgiving for our 20th anniversary. This Friday, 21st July 2023, starting from 6 a.m. to Saturday 6 a.m. at the Harvest Cathedral, Nakuru, featuring the Essence of Worship team from Tanzania, Pastor Ann Thuo, and the Kingdom Seekers Fellowship branches, praise teams, and bands. The 20th anniversary will be punctuated with an open-air street worship on Saturday 21st, starting from 2 p.m. at Nyayo Gardens, Nakuru City. Kingdom Seekers Fellowship at 20 will climax with a power-packed signing the banner of victory in thanksgiving to the Most High God. Ebenezer, this far the Lord has helped us. Come and celebrate with us in this interdenominational meetings, free and open to all. A fire is about to erupt. A new generation is rising because something big is about to happen. Apostle Julius Subi invites you to the Heavens Fire Prayer Summit.
Generate supernatural power as you feed it the word of God.
The summit will be held at the Nyayo National Stadium from the 1st to the 6th of August 2023. A new wave of the supernatural is hitting the city of Nairobi, Kenya. Guest ministers, Prophetess Cindy Jacobs from the USA
says you are going to be one of the first nations.
Pastor Robert Kayanja, Uganda. Apostle John Kemani William, Kenya.
My light is going to shine brighter and brighter.
Archbishop Harrison Keinganga from Kenya.
Biguni ni bali na biguni inasemekana si kubwa.
Prophetess Francina Nordman from the USA.
We stepped into a new era of glory.
Remember, the dates are from 1st to the 6th of August 2023 at the Nyayo Stadium. This is an annual convergence of God's army. For more information, call the number on your screen, 0757 223233.
This Thursday we will be taking you through how you can prepare your honey glazed chicken wings with lioness potatoes and stir fry vegetables.
So tutazipoesha sana maji baridi.
Maji baridi.
Ili kuwe tayari sasa haita overcook. Kwa hivyo tutaweka maji pale ili ichemkage.
Kwa sufuria.
Kwa sufuria.
Okay.
To boil viazi, to boil hizi chicken wings.
Yes, na to boil pia our vegetables.
So hii si necessarily tuipoeshe na maji baridi.
Hiyo si lazima.
Labda kutoa hiyo starch yenye iko juu.
Okay, ya ile sasa ile juu imetoka pale kuchemka.
Kuchemka.
Okay, but now they are
ready.
They are ready.
Yeah, ziko tayari already.
Okay. Don't miss this Thursday from 7:30 to 8 in the p.m.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Yeah, welcome back to the program, The Mid-Morning Pack, and we are still grateful and we appreciate that you are still joining us today in this particular discussion. We are discussing the topic on calls for sobriety and cohesion, okay? Of course, when these protests were called for by the opposition, most Kenyans were worried and concerned about the cohesion that we have witnessed or that we've experienced in the country, okay? The oneness, the unity among Kenyans. And of course, most of those who do not wish well for the country would want Kenyans to be divided, especially along their ethnic lines or their ethnic communities. But we are here today in this particular conversation to encourage you and to stress the fact that this country is bigger than any individual, okay? And sometimes it is also important for us to know that we are all here by God's design. You're not in this particular country by accident. It's God who designed that you are supposed to be here, and therefore you need also to look out for the best of the person that you're living with. And of course, in this particular discussion today, the question that we are asking you, because we also want you to contribute, is what is your appeal regarding to peace and cohesion in the country? What is your appeal regarding to peace and cohesion in the country? Continue giving us those good perspectives in our feedback platforms. We have social media platform, that is Facebook, MBCI TV, and also YouTube, that is MBCI TV official, and also for our shortcode platform, it is 23814. And that is Dr. Ndungu Kongo is a lecturer of political history and also a political analyst, helping us this particular morning to get into the insights, or to get some insights as far as this particular discussion is concerned. And of course, Dr. you had mentioned something very important just before the break, and when you say, for example, the situation that we are in this morning, just to bring us up to speed, like for example, we've already heard that the schools in Nyanza and also in Nairobi and also Mombasa, today they are remaining shut because of the fear of the effect of this particular mandamano. We've already seen quite a number of businesses have not been opened today because those who are concerned are worried that maybe people are going to get and maybe vandalize and also maybe loot their businesses. Now, it basically shows and paints a very gloomy picture of what we can actually call this particular protest. Now, what do you think, therefore, should be the role of the leaders, both those who are in government and those who are in the opposition?
Thank you very much, Mola, for that very important question. I want to say that war does not announce its coming. This one reminds me of 6th of April 1994. It was just an ordinary day in Rwanda. But the following day, 80,000 people died. And we seem to have been very poor in history, and we're not learning. The essence of history is to tell us where we are coming from, where we are, and where we are headed. Okay. It's only a fool who learns from his own mistakes, but we can learn from our neighbors. Now, what is happening today, and even as I was coming to this place, I realized that our city center is deserted. And I happen to have gone through a friend's business premise. And what we have seen is poverty, because if we do not work, then we usher in poverty. Okay. A little sleep, a little slumber, and poverty knocks your door. So,
Dr. and what you really said is very important, even capturing the aspect of poverty, because there are those who may be having the thought that the government has really tried, and we have witnessed a lot of police and the heavy presence of the police, especially in our major cities, just to ensure that maybe there is no violence, there is no throwing of stones, and so on. But when you look at these other aspects, like the ones you've said, people not being in a position to open up their businesses, this is also a very tall order.
Let me mention at this juncture that we seem to have graduated from physical demonstration to economic demonstration. If I was to advise the president, either way, we are losing. And I would want, by the fact that there is a lot of anxiety, by the fact that there is a heavy presence of security men and women in the city, that causes apprehension, that causes anxiety, that causes panic. and therefore people cannot do their business. So this is a clarion call that the leadership, the people in leadership, including the president, to actually to be humble enough, because leadership is about humility. Leadership is about compassion. Leadership is about being empathetic of the plight of the poor in society. And as I mentioned that this country is bigger than an individual, there is need to dialogue. There is need to talk. And the only way to move forward is that the president should reach his elder brother, Raila Amolo Odinga. Raila Amolo Odinga seems to have, but there is a clarion call to respect these independent arms of government. But again, what we are saying is that William Ruto should actually leave aside the cronies that surround him. Raila Odinga should leave the cronies that surround him so that we can think of our country. We are not Kalenjins, we are not Kikuyus, we are not Kambas, we are Team Kenya.
Wow. Wow, absolutely awesome there. And you've just mentioned cronies, and we've seen leaders, Daktari, and this is very unfortunate. Some of them, they are senators, some of them are members of parliament, some of them are even governors, some of them are even cabinet secretaries. And some of the words, some of the communication that have been coming from them, especially in their social media, is actually just wanton destruction, because we know how words can actually fuel that kind of what we call ethnic animosity. Now, when we see some of these leaders, and what really needs to be done, for example, maybe when you're seeing leaders from the opposition who are actually openly inciting people to actually maybe take on each other, or maybe in terms of maybe their economic or maybe in their ethnic groups or ethnic communities, also seeing maybe other leaders maybe also fueling some of these ethnic animosities. What is it that really needs to be done? And this has actually been witnessed so much, especially in the social media pages by these leaders.
Thank you very much, Mangicho. They say when you see the dog barking, don't blame the dog. You should blame the dog owner. We have delegated our power, our sovereignty, so that they educate responsibilities and roles on our behalf. But it's very unfortunate that the dog owners are not speaking against these utterances. It's very unfortunate that even the genocide we had in Rwanda, it was as a result of utterances. And as I mentioned, that we will be held accountable by what we say, when and how. This is a clarion call that President William Ruto should call the people that surround him, including the cabinet secretaries who have actually uttered derogatory words against a certain tribe, against a certain personality. There seems to be a culture of intolerance in Kenya. I want to say that it's God who decides the boundaries of Kenya and sets times and seasons that we are going to be here at such a time as this. We don't have any other country. Wow. We should actually be unified by our diversity, not being united at the graveyard, because where we are headed is not the right place. We're not headed in the right trajectory. So therefore, what will Raila Odinga benefit when people die? What will Dr. William Ruto benefit when people die? And if people die, who are they going to govern? The same people that have shared their sovereignty to safeguard their property. You know, one essence of social contract is whereby the citizens are able to transfer their mandates, their responsibility to these leaders, and then these leaders should protect the rights of Wanjiko. So it's very unfortunate. And that's why I say that our leaders need to go to a leadership school. This political bad manners, this negative culture of people not being responsible of their utterances is very unfortunate. But The buck stops with Raila Odinga. The buck stops with Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya. Even media has a responsibility. How do we package? How do we do our messaging? That is a responsibility. How do we actually air in today's newspaper? The caption is Kenya on the edge. This is very unfortunate. Must we wait for the clergy to arbitrate? Must we wait for the members of the diplomatic corps to get into our internal affairs? Must we wait for the United Nations to proclaim itself that we need to condemn police brutality? National Police Service has a responsibility to take care and to enforce law and order. There's been a blame on the part of the government that some people were shot on their back as they were running away. Why should we use live bullets against demonstrators? But again, why should we destroy property?
Right.
We have spent a lot of money, and we are in this debt burden because there is no value for money. We take a lot of, we've borrowed externally just to service our infrastructure development, but there's no value. Why should we destroy? After today's demonstration, after tomorrow's demonstration, after Friday's demonstration, what next? Patriotism calls upon us to reflect. Is it about us? Is it about our interest? Is it about our country, Kenya? Yes.
Yeah, before I bring my colleague Kagi, maybe, Daktari, you've rightly put it, and it's very, very important even for the viewer that is watching us. Now, one of the key things that maybe has been witnessed, Daktari, is a grandstanding, especially maybe now between our the two main protagonists in this particular scenario that we are finding ourselves in, that is the President William Ruto on one side, and of course the chief opposition leader Raila Odinga on the other side. Now, when you look at the scenario we are in today, and you compare it now with maybe 2017 when we had a similar scenario, and the former president or the then President Uhuru Kenyatta came to a handshake with his then nemesis Raila Odinga. Now, what would it mean, or what would it portend for the country if we had a similar picture now happening between the current president and chief opposition Raila Odinga?
Let me mention that chest thumping will not help. Threats will not help. This country, there is a lot that President Ruto can learn from Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga has been experienced, and we cannot write the history of democracy in Kenya without mentioning Raila Amolo Odinga. We cannot write the history of democracy in Kenya without mentioning Kenneth Matiba, Charles Rubia, Koigi wa Wamwere. Everybody has a responsibility, and out of our mistakes we can learn. And I want to say this, I now understand the reason as to why actually Uhuru Kenyatta reached his elder brother. And we are saying that education is lifelong. We keep on learning every day. I want to believe, as much as we will not advocate for handshake, because the government has said that we must respect the sovereignty of Wanjiko, because this is a legitimate government.
Yes.
But again, we can reach to our brothers for the betterment of our nation, because everybody has something to bring on board. You know, I'm looking for a scenario where we can tone down, where we can humble ourselves, where leaders can humble themselves and reach to one another without actually listening to their cronies and the people that surround them. Listen, look at these are buddies. Dr. William Ruto was with Raila Odinga during the dispensation of the new constitution and promulgation of the same, even though they were on different divides in support of the constitution, but they were together. In the formation of ODM, they were together. In 2007, they were together. These are buddies. I want to believe that this is the highest time that we should showcase leadership that is characterized by humility, by putting our country in front of our personal interests.
Wow.
Yes, thank you, Daktari. And there's one concern that I have regarding to our people, that is Kenyans, that we are very good, as you rightly said at the beginning, we are very good at maybe talking about good leaders, talking about having peaceful elections. But I don't know what happens with us as Kenyans, that after elections, we'll again go back to where we were. We never learn anything. Like today, as we are demonstrating, and as we can see, there are some ethnic animosities in some areas. It's something that we had talked even before elections. There was a lot of money that were used to be able to educate Kenyans on how to maintain peace and order. But after election, even though our leaders are involved, we seem not to care again on what we had absorbed in terms of bringing our country together. What happens to our people that we easily forget, and also we go back to where we were? The other thing is regarding to the coming together between the president and the chief opposition leader. I am asking, yes, we have seen last time when Uhuru met Raila, things cooled down. But I feel also for the president, maybe that's where the difference between the president and the deputy president that time came from. Don't you feel the president is reading from his own book, that he is careful not to do the same mistake the president did, that there was a difference between him and his boss, that it doesn't happen between him and his deputy, who is very categorical in saying that there is nothing like having a handshake with Raila?
Thank you very much. You have asked a question about Wanjiku. We seem not to be learning from history. And I would want to actually appreciate the fact that our politics are anchored on ethnic mobilization. And this is very much unfortunate. I want to give a scenario with the Arusha Declaration of 1967 that was started by Mwalimu Julius Kabarage Nyerere, in which Kiswahili became a national language. And in Tanzania, if you are a Chaga, if you are a Sukuma, if you are a Nyamwezi, if you are a Yao, your Nyamweziness does not supersede the Tanzanianness in Tanzania. But in Kenya, when you listen to Agekoyo, when you listen to the Luos, when you listen to the Kalenjin, they speak about our man, our people. And this one leads us to retrogression instead of progression. And I would want to mention that Kenyans should be actually held responsibility because of some of the problems we are undergoing. And that is why we are saying at this juncture, Wanjiku seems to have lost hope. Wanjiku seems to have lost trust with the government. Look at this government campaigned on a platform of Hustler Nation, of Boda Boda, of Mama Mboga. But now that one has not, their promises have not been met. If our leaders cannot fulfill their promises, then our countrymen are disillusioned, which is very much unfortunate. The culture of ethnicity, negative ethnicity, the culture of corruption is cropping in. So therefore, we should learn from history, because the essence of history is to tell us where we are coming from, where we are, and where we are going. The second bit of the question you have asked is about our leaders. These leaders, and what can we do? That Dr. William Ruto seems to be reading from his own book. I would want to say that leadership, presidency is a symbol of national unity. He should be the unifying factor between those that voted for him and those that did not vote for him. And again, we should remind Dr. William Ruto that the vote difference was 230,000, meaning that Raila Odinga has following. Dr. William Ruto has following. Now we need to involve all the stakeholders, not a bipartisan talk. After the bipartisan that has no political goodwill will not have solution to some of these problems. It only takes two people, and calm will be established in Kenya. Dr. William Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga.
I'm trying to ask myself, if they come together, what do you think they should bring on board to be able to agree on something?
Now, some of the issues that the opposition is raising is the rate of inflation, cost of living, skyrocketing fuel prices, the skyrocketing prices on unga. I think this is something we're not encouraging that they form government, because we have again to be worried of the responsibility of citizens and the democracy and the universal suffrage of Wanjiko. But we are saying that if the two of them can sit down, and if there is value addition from the opposition, so be it for our nation.
Yeah.
If Dr. William Ruto can listen to some of these issues and they come with ideas, because the question I'm asking myself after today's demonstration, after tomorrow's demonstration, after Friday's demonstration, what next?
Yeah, and Mangisho, before you continue, yes, Daktari, one of the things that the government has tried to bring on board to be able to allow opposition to have a good platform to address their issues and also to make them more effective is creation of the opposition office in Parliament. But this thing has not materialized. The opposition seems to be very adamant on this matter. Don't you feel also they are not fair to Kenyans and even to other leaders? They are trying to come up with a way to help them to be able to pursue their agendas legally, and they are refusing. Is it fair?
It's very unfortunate that we're in this scenario. But I believe that if we can be humble enough and listen to one another, we need to have a national dialogue. We need to bring all the stakeholders on board, because we seem to have underlying issues, cross-cutting from governance, leadership. Look at our institution. Look at the commitment to fighting corruption. Look at some communities feel actually excluded from the national cake. But what we are having, if some people feel that they are left out, and that's why we are calling for a national dialogue that involves all the stakeholders. Wanjiko is represented, the clergy is represented, the media is represented, all people on a round table and facing this dragon of corruption, negative ethnicity, that everybody can feel that he is a Kenyan. I think we'll be moving forward. Yeah. But if we have a bipartisan talk that represents the interest of government and that represents the interest of opposition, we will not move ahead.
Very interesting perspectives and very enlightening perspectives there, Dr. Ndungu Kongo. We will continue this particular conversation, but of course, as we always do in this particular program, we have our reporter Vincent Kimtai also meeting and interacting with Kenyans and also getting their opinions on what they think about this particular subject. And of course, Vincent Kimtai also went to the streets and got the comments and the opinions from Kenyans on the issue of the calls for sobriety and cohesion. Let us also hear and listen into what Kenyans are saying in regards to this particular matter. Vincent Kimtai, take it away.
Shukran sana Mangisho Mola pamoja na Paul Kagi. Leo hapa nitakuwa nikizungumza na Wakenya kuhusiana na maandamano ya upinzani Azimio la Umoja dhidi ya serikali. Nitakuwa nikiwashirikisha Wakenya kwenye maswali kadhaa, ikiwamo sisi kama Wakenya tutaweza kuishi vipi kwa amani na utangamano licha ya uchochezi kutoka kwa baadhi ya viongozi wa kisiasa wanaowataka kushiriki katika maandamano. Vilevile nitakuwa nikiwashirikisha Wakenya kwenye swali hili, ambapo ni vipi kama Mkenya utaweza kuishi na jirani yako anayeunga mkono maandamano na asiyeunga mkono maandamano. Haya yote ni kufuatia msimamo mkali wa upinzani wa kusema kwa watasitisha maandamano licha ya wito kutoka kwa wadau mbalimbali, ikiwemo viongozi wa kidini pamoja na mashirika ya kijamii ambayo yamewataka wasitishe maandamano humu nchini.
Kwa majina naitwa Lilian, mimi mkaaji hapa wa Nakuru. Na mimi wito wangu kwa Raila na Ruto ni wakae chini waelewane, kwa sababu hai benefit wa wananchi wakati kila mtu anashikilia msimamo mzito. Sisi wananchi wa kawaida ndio tunaumia, kwa sababu ukiangalia sisi watu kama watu wa biashara, maandamano ikifanyika, mtu kama mimi naadhirika. Mimi ni mtu lazima nitoke ndio watoto wapate ya kitu ya kukula. So siku 2-3 nikikaa kwa nyumba, familia yangu ndio inazidi kuumia. Kwa hivyo sisi tunaomba tu hii maandamano isitishwe, watu wakae chini waelewane, kwa sababu ndio kweli uchumi ni mbaya, lakini tukizidi pia kuandamana ndio tunazidi kurudisha uchumi nyuma. Kwa hivyo naomba tu hao viongozi wetu tunawapenda sana, na tunaomba Mungu awape hekima waweze kukaa chini waelewane, kwa sababu kitu tunahitaji tu katika nchi yetu ya Kenya sasa ni amani. Hakuna jambo lingine. Tunaomba amani ili kila mtu apate nafasi ya kwenda kutafuta unga yake, watoto wapate kitu ya kukula.
Ile uongozi iko haijakaa, kwa hivyo tungeomba ipe nafasi ikae ndio iwe na mizizi ya kufanya ile kazi inafanya. Halafu kama inaendelea kufanya hiyo kazi inafanya, ndio tutajua kama iko na shida ama kama haina shida. Kwa maana hata watu kigoma tunajiumiza sisi wenyewe kwa wenyewe. Wengine anakufa, wengine hospitali, magari zinachomwa, nyumba zinabomolewa, barabara zinaharibika. Unaona? Watu wanaraja. Kama sasa kesho mimi sizaenda kazi, nitaenda kwa kitanda. Kwa maana hakuna haja nitokee niumizwe ama watoto wangu waumie. Kwa hivyo ile njia mzuri ni tukae kwa manyumba, kwa maana hiyo maandamano hakuna kitu inasaidia. Na kama kuna wenye wanataka maandamano hiyo wenye kama ni serikali, kuna kitu wasaidie kwa serikali, wangeenda kwa utaratibu, sio kwa maandamano kuumiza wengine, kuchoma nini. Wangeenda kwa utaratibu ambao unafaa, ndio wajue ni nini wanataka, baada ya funjo mingi. Kama na funjo hakuna kitu itawasaidia.
Ili Kenya iendelee vizuri, lazima tukubali Raila na Ruto wasalimiane, maandamano ishe Kenya. Wananchi wa common hakuna shida ya unga. Unga ni bei juu 220, watu wanalala njaa. Sasa ili hii maandamano izuiliwe, Ruto tu kubali kusalimiana na Raila. Na hapo hakuna cha kufikiria. Kiongozi hastahili kujipea kifua. Anastahili kuwa kiongozi kamili, na kabila moja si ya maana kuliko kabila 42 walioko wako Kenya. Kwa hivyo tunamuuliza Mheshimiwa Ruto, ndio hata kama ulichaguliwa, salimiana na Raila. Maandamano iche. Mambo ya kuharibu mali ya watu ishe. Hiyo tu. Hatuna mambo mingi Kenya. Sisi ndio tunaweza kutafuta unga. Lakini sasa kama maandamano iko uongo bure, unaongewa nini? Bas, wasalimiane, hiyo kitu, mambo iendelee, kazi Kenya iendelee.
Sasa na tena kwa uzuri, viongozi wakiamua kuongea, wasuluhishe huko kwa serikali, waamue waangalie hii shida yenye tunaongelelea, ndio watusaidie. Si ati kusema maandamano iishe na tusaidiki kwa kitu yoyote. Hiyo ndo maoni yangu.
Kwa majina naitwa Judy na mimi ni mkaji wa Nakuru. Na tena mimi ni mwanabiashara hapa Nakuru. Mimi ningesema upande wa maandamano, as long as watu wanasema ati kila mtu ako na right ya kuandamana, ndio watu wako na right ya kuandamana. Lakini mimi kwa maoni yangu ni sioni maandamano kama kuna mambo mingi inaweza badilisha, because at the end of the day maandamano ikikuja tunaona watoto wa watu wanaumia, watoto wa watu wanakufa, jamii za watu zenye watoto mtu amepoteza babake na pengine ndiye alikuwa breadwinner, hiyo familia inaenda chini. Alafu tena kama ni biashara zinaharibiwa, mali ya watu inaharibiwa. So at the end of the day kama maandamano inakuja na hii fujo, furugu, mimi sioni kama iko na impact yoyote. Mimi tu kitu nenye ningesema tu na ningeambia wa viongozi wawili wakae chini. Hao wenyewe wakae chini, waongee maneno, wasolve kila kitu, alafu kila kitu itakuwa iko sawa. Cause wao wanasema huko juu vile wanakuwa, lakini sisi huku chini ndio tunaumia. Mtu akikuja kwa duka yako, haribu vitu, afanye nini, yeye huwezi hakuna vile utamshtaki, walikuja wengi huwezi jua ni nani, na hata na yeye sioni kama kuna faida kubwa yenye anapata. Na wale wako huko juu hawasikii uchungu wenye sisi tunasikia huku chini. So wao wenyewe wawili ndio wanafaa kutoa solution, wakae chini waongee hivi vitu yote iende imeisha. Kwa watu wakisema kama sasa ati ni maandamano siku tatu watu wakiandamana watoe fujo, hakutaendwa shule, hakutaenda biashara, watu hawatafanya mambo zao. So hakuna vile tunajenga hata Kenya, tunaenda tukiharibu Kenya yetu. Kwa kama wewe umenunua kitu tena mtu mwingine akuje haribu, utaenda hasara tena uanze kujenga. So mimi sioni kama kuna vile inatusaidia sana.
Majina ni Ngoge. Maandamano imekuja kwa sababu serikali imekataa kusikia mwananchi. Mwananchi anasema maisha ni ngumu. Kama mimi natumia pikipiki, sasa hizi mafuta wametufuta kazi, walituambia bodaboda nini wanatuenjoy. Things are tough. Maandamano iendelee ndio government isikie mwananchi. Ndio walichukua member of parliament wakawapea pesa, so mwananchi ako exposed, ako peke yake. That's the only way to express themselves.
Kwa majina anaitwa Agnes Kerubo. Wito ambao ningeachia serikali ni kwamba walete umoja kwa Kenya yetu, tuweze kuwa na amani, ndio nchi iweze kuendelea. Na zaidi sana tuweze kuombea Kenya yetu katika hali na hali.
Mimi naweza taka Raila na Ruto waongee, wakae chini waongee, kwa sababu hiyo maandamano haisaidii mtu yote. Hiyo ni hasara tupu kwa sisi wote, kwa watoto wa shule, kwa wazazi, kwa kila mtu.
Mimi story na maandamano, mimi ningetaka waongee kabisa, waondoe issue juu wakisema ni maandamano wanaleta njaa kweli. Wanatuletea njaa, huku kunakosa job, gari zitembei na tunafaa tuunde gari, unaona? Sasa issue tu smart tu ni wabonge, wa solve issues, mambo iko tu sawa. Maandamano haina faida.
Mangicho pamoja na Kagi, hayo ni kauli za Wakenya kuhusiana na maandamano ya upinzani Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, ambapo tumeona wengi wanasema kuwa ni vyema kwa Rais William Ruto pamoja na kinara wa Azimio Raila Odinga kufanya mazungumzo ili kutafuta suluhu ya kudumu kuhusiana na maandamano yanayoshuhudiwa humu nchini. Wanasema kuwa uharibifu wa mali pamoja na Wakenya wengi kupoteza maisha na wengine kujeruhiwa yameweza kushuhudiwa katika maandamano ya siku chache zilizopita. Kinachosubiriwa ni ikiwa upande wa Azimio utaweza kusitisha maandamano licha kutokufuatia mwito ambao umetolewa na wadau mbalimbali, ikiwemo viongozi wa kidini, ikiwemo viongozi wa kisiasa kutoka upande wa serikali na pamoja na mashirika yasiyo ya kiserikali, ambapo yameitaka Azimio kusitisha maandamano. Tunasubiri ikiwa Azimio itaweza kusitisha maandamano nchini ili hali ya kawaida ikaweze kurejelewa. Nikiripotia kipindi cha Mid Morning Park NBCI TV, jina langu ni Vincent Kimutai.
Well, thank you so much. That is our reporter there, Vincent Kimutai, actually getting to interact with Kenyans to also get their perspectives and also their reading of what is happening. And Daktari Kagi, Daktari Ndung, and also my colleague Kagi. Of course, Kenyans have come out very audibly there. And one of the things, Daktari, that I would also want you to chip in on, if we can actually just pick some of the sentiments from Kenyans. Number one, Kenyans are of the opinion that maandamano will not really be the solution, and they have already, and they've already stated very well that the negative effect of maandamano, we really don't need to have those kind of effect. Now, there is this other thing that Kenyans have also mentioned and stated categorically, that there are things that they are actually going through when it comes now to the economic situation, the economic plight that they are actually going through. And when you look at the leaders that have called for this maandamano, it's like they believe that this is what is really going to make maybe the government to give in to these particular demands. Now, Daktari, how do you think, therefore, this particular issue should be looked into? At one particular point, Kenyans believe that no, whatever they are going through is difficult, is hard. But then, maandamano are not the solution. But this maandamano, again, they've been called for by the opposition. How do we get out of this particular mix?
Now, thank you. There is a clarion call from our audience that Raila Odinga and Dr. William Ruto should talk. There is a clarion call for us to tone down. There is a clarion call for us to be humble. In a family, we have our siblings. And we have differences even at the household level. We are a family called Kenya.
Right.
We should not look at Raila Odinga as a Luo. We should not look at Rigathi Gachagua as a Gikuyu. We should not look at Dr. William Ruto as a Kalenjin. We should look ourselves as siblings of the same family called Kenya. Talking does not necessarily mean that we have a Nusumkate government. It only means that we can accommodate one another in diversity, uniting as much as we should. You know, in democracy, we should allow dissent. We should allow and respect difference in opinion. We should only differ in opinions and in ideology.
And actually, if I could just cut it short, because that particular point is what maybe most people have had varied arguments. That does it necessarily mean that if the chief opposition maybe was to be roped into government or have that arrangement like the one we had between him and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, does that translate to Kenyans also maybe benefiting even in terms of the economic status of Kenyans? Or is it for his own maybe, and just maybe a few who are maybe close to him to benefit? Does it mean that if we have maybe the president, for example, this time round, we have the president who was elected on Kenya Kwanza ticket, UDA, does it mean that those who did not elect him don't deserve also maybe to get the services and maybe the programs that are supposed to benefit them, even if maybe they did not elect him?
Now, if these two leaders were to talk, if they were to accommodate one another on issues affecting the plight of Mwananchi, the plight of Wanjiko, issues to do with the cost of living, issues to do with the skyrocketing of fuel prices, issues to do with the feeling that some other people are left out of government. If these people would meet on real issues without putting their personal interest, they would be very patriotic. If they would talk on issues, matters, services to Wanjiko, if they would talk on issues education, if they would talk on issues of inclusivity, if they would talk on issues of how to fight the dragon, the cancer called corruption and negative ethnicity. That is the most important thing, and that is what is called patriotism. Love for our country, not love for oneself, not for love for one's tribe. I'm one proponent of tribes. We should celebrate the Agikuyu-ness in me. We should celebrate the Kalenjin-ness in some of us, in Kambaism in some of us. If we would appreciate and bring some of these ingredients in cooking the national cake, if we would appreciate the vigor of perfection from Luos, if we would appreciate the recipe from the Kambas that is called humility, if we would actually bring the ingredient from the entrepreneurial skills from the Agikoyo and come up with a national cake that can be shared equally, that is progress.
Wow.
But if we are going to talk on the basis of it's me who was duly elected, it's me, I'm the chief opposition leader, it's me and the people that surround me, we shall be making the same mistake, and history will judge all of us harshly. Yes.
And of course, again, Daktari, because even as we look at maybe these particular calls for Maandamano, and maybe most people would argue that they are not the right way to go because of even maybe what we've seen in the past. Now, why is it therefore difficult, maybe from the institutions that we have, for the other avenues that maybe we have, like maybe leaders coming together, using maybe our institutions like Parliament, we have the courts, we have the judiciary, and maybe also have other institutions that maybe can be roped in and look maybe at some of the issues that are bringing that contention between our leaders. Why is it not that these particular institutions, these other avenues, are not succeeding to give us these solutions?
The reason as to why they're not succeeding, because of the so-called independent institutions are not independent. There is a lot of interference. We have three arms of government that should be very independent: the executive, judiciary, and legislature. But our legislature seems to be foot soldiers of the executive. It seems to be a puppet of the executive. And these parliamentarians are people that have been delegated authority by Wanjiko. They should represent the interest of Wanjiko. Look at the issue of public participation. Look at what we have just mentioned in our newspapers today, the Finance Act 2023. If I can remember well, it is said that 10 out of 70 organizations, it's only 10 organizations out of 70 that supported the Finance Bill 2023. 70 were against the Finance Bill.
Right.
Were against the Finance Bill. So that means the issue of public participation is just in writing. It is just in word, but not in deed. So we want to ask the people in leaders to respect our institution. When we think about, for example, National Police Service headed by Inspector General, it is an independent institution. Actually, it should be independent. Look at what is happening to the security of prominent people. For example, yesterday we had the Azimio group saying that the 10th Vice President of Kenya has no security now. The second Prime Minister of Kenya has no security. They've been given security by the fact that they served in those very offices. But when we get into that trajectory, when we have an innocent First Lady whose security men and women have been recalled, that is very much unfortunate. And the president should know that power is transient. He will not be the president of the Republic of Kenya for more than 10 years. It is constitution. So what we are supposed to do is to respect the independence of these institutions, and then these institutions should be professional. There should be no interference. We have only one of government that should give hope now to Wanjiko. That is judiciary. We are calling upon the president of the judiciary of Kenya, who is Martha Koome, to actually foster and fight for independence of judiciary, because that is the only hope that Wanjiko has.
Yes, there is another body called the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, which has a big role of integrating our nation, bringing our nation together. But for 3 consecutive elections, this body has been funded by the government. But according to you, do you feel whether this body is effective in matter of bringing us together as Kenyans?
Some of these independent institutions, including the National Cohesion Commission, they are just in word, they're just in writing. I have seen them actually passing threats and not taking action, because they seem to be serving the interest of people in government then. But, actually, if they're even suffocated because of the budget, the executive has power. And that's what we want to let the executive know, that the presidency is the symbol of national unity.
Yeah.
And he should leave. President Kibaki remains my hero because he allowed these institutions to work. He allowed his cabinet secretaries to work. He actually, somebody mentioned, if I can remember, that there is no single day that Kibaki took his phone and called the Chief Justice. No, there's no one day that he was ever called, because these institutions are supposed to be independent.
Yeah.
Look at the Teacher Service Commission, what is happening with the teachers. Teachers are crying. Look at the Independent Election Boundaries Commission. There is no confidence. That's why the opposition is calling for a stakeholders meeting so that they can actually talk on the formulation of the Independent Election Boundaries Commission.
So some of these bodies need to be disbanded if they are not. They are using taxpayers' money, and they are not effective.
Actually, they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant. There is no political will from the executive. That's what I'm saying. There is a lot of wastage in this country. There is an embezzlement of funds. Look at the delegation that accompanies the president, the deputy president, the office of the prime cabinet secretary to foreign countries. That is a lot of wastage. There is no political goodwill. And that's why we are saying that they're just safeguarding. And these people in power, these people in leadership, they seem to have not had any agenda. Because if they had agenda, somebody has kept on saying that we are fixing this country, we are fixing this economy. But 8 months down the line, there is nothing that seems to be going. Let me tell you something, Mola and Kagi.
Yes.
Mwai Kibaki was in opposition from 1988 to 2003. He was once the vice president of the Republic of Kenya. He was once the cabinet secretary for finance. He knew when he made his pledge to Kenyans that in 2003 we would have free primary education. And on 3rd of January 2003, I remember very well, I was of age, there was free primary education. Look at our current president.
Even CDF.
Even CDF.
Yeah.
Now, look at our current president, who was the deputy president for 10 years. He knew the state of the economy. But he made promises to Mama Mboga, to border riders, that once he puts his Bible on his desk, fuel prices will go down. Unga prices will go down. This is somebody who's been the cabinet secretary for agriculture. But there seems to be nothing. We're not, Wanjiku is not feeling this government, and he seems to have lost hope.
Yeah.
Again, we have also to ask Raila Odinga, who's been the Minister for Roads and Public Works, that he should actually help the government in designing our roads. He should actually be condemning the destruction that we witnessed last week. We have not heard him witness. Look at the Kalonzo Musyoka. He was the mastermind of the Southern Sudan peace. Look at him. He's in the streets. Is that the way to go? These are our leaders. Are we learning?
Very good perspectives there. And Daktari, therefore, one would also want, therefore, to find out, and Kenyans now are at this particular point, maybe leaders are not showing the good leadership that they need. And maybe for most Kenyans, they look up to these particular leaders. But now from the examples that we are seeing is like they're not leading us to the right direction. And even as we're talking about sobriety, even as we are talking about cohesion, and what would that average Kenyan now, what is it supposed to do, okay? When maybe the person that you've looked upon is not giving the direction that is supposed to is actually supposed to give. What is that average Kenyan watching us today supposed to do? The one that is watching us from Eldoret, the one that is watching us from Nairobi, the one that is watching us from Kisumu. And even if Kenyans were to come together at a time like this, and if we can actually take out the politicians, those who are in elective offices, who else is supposed now to come in and show Kenyans the direction that they need to?
This issue is multifaceted. It crops up from the people in leadership, from the president, from the presidency, which is a symbol of national unity. It also crops up from the elected members of parliament, senators, governors, deputy governors, member of county assembly. Media has a responsibility. Wanjiku has a responsibility. Everybody, as a family called Kenya, we should take responsibility as we hold our leaders accountable. Leadership should not be arrogant. Leadership should not be proud. Leadership should be compassionate, should have some concern of the plight of the poor. All of us, we have a responsibility. There should be political goodwill. And to whom much is given, much is expected. Much has been given to the president. Much has been accorded to the leaders of opposition. Much has been accorded to the members of parliament. Much has been given to these independent institutions. Everybody has a role. But we seem to have a problem with our social fabrics, that corruption begins at home. Negative ethnicity. I've traveled and I've seen Kenyans being appreciated because of their zeal, because of their vigor when they are out there working. But when we come here, even foreigners tell us, you have a beautiful country, but we're not taking advantage of the beautiful serene. Wow. Because this thing is multifaceted, cutting across leaders, cutting across Wanjiku, cutting across people in the public service. Everybody has a responsibility. And we would want to say that we should be united in our diversity. We should not be united in the graveyard. After people have died, William Ruto and Raila Odinga, who are you going to lead? After people have died or have gone the Rwandese way, who are you going to lead? Let us learn from our mistakes. Let's learn from our history and forge forward. We have no any other country. Kenya is beautiful.
And there is something that we had talked about, you had actually alluded to off-air, Daktari, that it takes any government that has been elected 18 months to actually stabilize. Now, this government is still young, Daktari, and do you think with what now we are seeing, because these demonstrations actually came very, very soon, it's like maybe even the opposition, there are those who think that even the opposition did not even give this government enough time to actually even just settle. Now, when we continue like this, maybe after 2 weeks again, another stream of demonstration is called for. After 1 month again, other protests, another of protests is actually called for. When we move like this, by the time we reach 2027, how do you think this scenario will play out?
I am of the school of thought that for any government to settle, it takes 18 months. But it is very much unfortunate that Ruto's government is receiving resistance from the opposition and Wanjiku barely 8 months in office. Could it be that Ruto's government has not shown goodwill? Could it be that some of the people that did not elect William Ruto into office and his leadership have felt excluded? Why this early? Why has Wanjiku lost trust with the government that Wanjiku elected on 8th of August 2022? Why? There are some questions. And that is why we would want to advise the people in leadership. We would want to advise people that are surrounding William Ruto, the cabinet secretary, to tone down. They should now get to know that they were elected. They were given some responsibility. It's their time to deliver to Wanjiku. But it seems 8 months down the line, they are not ready to settle. Somebody has said that a few billions were used in luxury, in celebration. This government seems to be celebrating. We have had some leaders actually alluding the current predicament to the previous regime. We should forget the previous regime and get to settle down into business and work. Let us not, actually all the time, if you were to listen to the people in government, to the Kenya Kwanza government and followers and leaders that support William Ruto, all the time they talk of Uhuru Kenyatta. They talk of the handshake brother. They seem to be very idle. Because if they are busy working, why should you keep on speaking about Uhuru Kenyatta? Why should you speak about Raila Odinga? You should be found to be doing, not offering promises after another. And the previous promises have not actually been fulfilled. That is the problem. As much as I agree they should be given time, yes, they should. But again, and that's why I was saying that one of the transformative leaders in post-independent regime in Kenya is Kibaki, Mwai Kibaki. He was in opposition from 1988 to 2003. But on 3rd of July 2003, we felt transformation. We witnessed reforms. You know, when this leadership were campaigning on a platform of institutional reforms, we have not witnessed institutional reforms. We have not witnessed, actually, we have not felt this government. Actually, there is a rocketing of basic commodities. Look at, even in terms of school fees, look at, even the public servants are all over complaining. Look at these taxes. Now, if we were to look at Scandinavian countries, they are overtaxed actually more than Kenya. But one of the things about Scandinavian countries is that there is free medical, free education. There is value for their taxes.
And when they say it is free, it is free.
When it's free, it's free. Yes. But look at our country, Kenya. Kenyans have not been convinced that if I am overtaxed, I will find these basic services. Okay. There's no commitment for value for your money.
Wow. Yes, Kagi, I think my director is telling me that you are pressed for time, but we really want to take this particular opportunity to appreciate our guest for this particular program today. That is Dr. Ndungu Kongo. He's a lecturer of political history and also a political analyst. Thank you so much, Daktari.
Most welcome.
Such great insights, and we're looking forward again to have you in this particular discussion, even as we purpose to make sure that we help so that this particular country can be the country that we've all dreamt of. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It was good having me here.
Yes.
I want to believe that we're going to heed to the clarion call to uphold sobriety and to be united, in our diversity.
Absolutely.
Kenya is greater than an individual.
Sure. And we also want to appreciate you so much, our dear viewer, for also making time to be with us in this particular program. We've had a very candid discussion and conversation. And of course, the ultimate call and the clarion call that we've been making is that ensure you maintain sobriety, ensure you maintain cohesion, because we do not have any other country. This is a country that God designed that we be. You have a responsibility, I have a responsibility to make Kenya that proud country that we've all looked forward to have. My name is Mangi Chomola. We'll do it again next week at a time like today's. See you then. Enjoy the rest.
Yes, Mangicho, as I end, I want to read just one comment. Every Kenyan citizen is a Kenyan, and the government should listen to him carefully, no matter from which tribe or religion. It's called Onesimus Nzioki. My name is Paul Kagi. Have a blessed Wednesday.